Balkanska istraživačka mreža Bosne i Hercegovine analizirala je sadržaj nekoliko udžbenika historije završnih razreda osnovnih škola iz Bosne i Hercegovine i iz Srbije s fokusom događaja na uoči i tokom raspada Jugoslavije, te od 1992. do 1995. godine. I ta analiza je pokazala da djeca zapravo uče potpuno različito gradivo. Koliko je to pogubno za budućnost novih generacija?
Right. What I think BIRN is doing, the Balkan Investigative Reporting Network, is really a great public service in terms of developing this curriculum, the textbooks, and then teaching and providing it to teachers. This is a great advance in my view. It's better than anything the international community ever attempted. I think they are to be commended. I mean, this is journalism at its best, working hand in hand with school teachers and helping them develop and write books, history books that are absolutely accurate based upon this database that they've created of judicial convictions. I think it's really admirable, and they deserve a lot of credit for stepping up and coming forward to support not only the teachers, but the students and the future of the country.
Da li je međunarodni faktor svjestan svoje uloge I odgovornosti u Bosni I Hercegovini?
Well, again, let me just say that I'm just very disappointed in Mr. Schmidt, who seems to stay within the boundaries, the limit. He seems to stay within the boundaries. He does not initiate where he can act and really have a positive impact. And let me just say this, now that there is an International Day of Commemoration and Observation of the Srebrenica genocide that was adopted by the United Nations this past summer, and actually I spoke in support of it, it calls for a curriculum. It calls for a curriculum to be adopted within the states that have this International Day of reflection and commemoration, to create a curriculum to teach, I think, starting with the schools, exactly what happened in that genocide. For example, here in Bosnia, there's only one genocide. I would argue there was ongoing genocides, but one was determined by the International War Crimes Tribunal for former Yugoslavia to be a genocide. So I think there's a new way that the international community now has stepped forward in this International Day of Reflection. And I think what can happen is that NGOs can help develop curriculum. I know the Post-Conflict Research Center has done this with regard to schools and the Holocaust education, and it seems to yield itself to this new adoption by the UN, which is important to Bosnia.
Za koga Christian Schmidt radi ako ne radi za Bosnu I Hercegovinu?
It's a good question. Sometimes I wonder why he took the job. Maybe it's a good paycheck.
Da li je za Balkan, odnosno za Bosnu I Hercegovinu, važno ko će pobijediti, Trump ili Harris?
I'm going to say a couple of things. One is she really did develop what you would call foreign policy chops. I'm going to use that term. She went to the Munich Security Conference 3 years in a row. She spoke at the Munich Security Conference, became friendly with the Germans, and she actually worked with the Germans on the hostage swap, for example. Secondly, she's been sitting in the Situation Room with the president and the national security team, for the past nearly 4 years. She has a strong commitment to rule of law. And what's best about America, you can see that she's embracing soft power, our values. How do our values matter? How do we leverage our values? How do we take care of our own people? Then how do we take care of our friends? I'm going to say this. I'm not going to put $1,000 down on the gambling table in Vegas, but she offers an opportunity for a reset. She can be educated, and she does learn quickly. And I think, given her value system and how she feels about America, both at home and abroad, she wants to bring our best. And if she brings our best to the Balkans, I believe there is a potential reset.
Ono što je konkretnije...
Better than Trump, without a doubt.
I understand. Ono što je konkretnije do sada stizalo iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država jesu sankcije, crna lista, nekoliko političara i su do sada se našli na toj crnoj listi. Šta vi mislite, da li je bilo efekata od svega toga?
It does seem, based upon some of the conversations I've had, that Mr. Dodik has had a lot of money taken away from him, from his family members and his friends. And that's probably a good thing, given his manipulation and his use of media to advance an illiberal agenda. I don't know how far that goes with each person that's sanctioned, whether in Bosnia-Herzegovina or in Serbia. I would like to see a mix of carrots and sticks that don't exist yet, and I think that they're on the right track, and maybe they're learning as they do this, but they don't share that knowledge with the public, obviously. So I would be reading tea leaves to get a better understanding. But I'm sure once that money's taken away, it's not a good thing for somebody who's been milking every person around him and every maybe business that he's got his hands on. He's been cut off.
Da li je najbolji način to što rade? Kaznit ćemo vas ako vas već na drugi način ne možemo skloniti sa političke scene.
Yeah, so we have to ascertain just how much taking the money away hurts that person, and does it prevent them from trying to do it again? That's a really good question, and that's left up to human behavior and what motivates those people. That remains to be seen. It is, from my perspective, it's not satisfactory at all, and I'm not Bosnian. So I'm sure the Bosnian on the street isn't particularly happy about it.
Prema blogu međunarodnog eksperta za Balkan, gospodina Danijela Servera, Bosna i Hercegovina se suočava sa ozbiljnim prijetnjama. On je naglasio da nacionalisti Srba i Hrvata ponovo pokušavaju da naruše sav taj dogovor i napredak koji smo postigli nakon Daytona 1995. godine. Kažu kako su Sjedinjene Američke Države uklonile Stranku demokratske akcije, a ostavile srpske i hrvatske nacionaliste. Kako vi ovo tumačite? Da li dijelite njegove stavove?
Oh yes. Oh yes, I do agree with him. And it's like, let's take out the napkin and cut Bosnia up. This is an old playbook. They do it over and over and over. And what's reprehensible about Zagreb is that they use an EU platform to undermine Bosnia. And that's outrageous. And that's where the EU has completely fallen down.
Vi ste, profesorice, jedne prilike kazali da su Sjedinjene Američke Države nekako odustale od ideje o građanskoj i demokratskoj Bosni i Hercegovini. Da li i dalje tako mislite?
Well, I have been very disappointed in the way the United States has approached Bosnia. Bosnia is in desperate need of reform. In terms of Dayton, how many more decisions does the European Court of Human Rights have to hand down? Why hasn't the High Representative and others moved to apply these laws? This is critical to the electoral integrity of the country. But not only am I disappointed about that, I mean, Mr. SCHMIDT himself imposed a law, changed the electoral laws on the day of the election, which I have been outraged about. The United States backed it 100%. I'm not going to let this go. They went around the Venice Commission. The Venice Commission would have never approved this action. They knew it, and they went around them and didn't approach them for approval. And let me just add that the United States has backed Mr. SCHMIDT on all these actions. And when Mr. Blinken sent the letter to the Council of Ministers, the Council of Presidents in March of 2021, it was such a low ball agenda. It was like corruption, yes, of course, corruption. We know how endemic corruption is in the region. Yes, elections. But they didn't really spell out what that meant, but they didn't also acknowledge, he didn't also acknowledge that all these decisions about electoral integrity in Bosnia that affects the voters, because you have to declare what your ethnicity is, and some people have bravely challenged that in court and won, they haven't even touched it. The United States, the arbiter of the, responsible, open, clean elections, didn't do anything.
Htjela sam vas pitati gdje je Bosna i Hercegovina na listi prioriteta Evropske unije i Sjedinjenih Američkih Država, ali evo čini mi se da ste kazali pa gotovo nigdje.
I don't think Joe Biden or anybody in the White House is thinking about Bosnia. Maybe somebody on the National Security Council. There's been turnover there. I said this when 9/11 happened. I told all my Bosnian friends, I'm telling you right now that money's going to leave Bosnia. And I was right. The war in Ukraine had to be done, and it's not a bipartisan. There's not bipartisan support in the United States. We have a lot of Republicans that support Mr. Putin. So I can tell you right now that Bosnia is definitely not being thought of on a regular basis, and I think the only time that it probably comes up is if there's a real crisis. And when I see bad news, then I know maybe Bosnia is going to get some attention.
Šta vi kažete da možemo očekivati na Zapadnom Balkanu u narednom periodu, pa evo kada govorimo o tom sigurnosnom aspektu?
Well, myself and other analysts have long said that we believe Bosnia should have a NATO reinforced presence. I feel strongly the only reason Vučić does not cross the boundary into Kosovo is because there's a NATO reinforced presence in Kosovo. And I don't believe, and many people agree with me on this, I mean, I'm not the expert on this, there are a lot of people that are experts, that U4 force is just light, it's lightly armed, and it does not have the capacity to stop something if it were to begin, for example, in Brčko. So I would just say that, of course, the security of Bosnia matters. That's why I'm here. And I would also add that you cannot have peace and you cannot create a culture of peace, including all of its citizens, including women, if you exclude them from the process. And women were excluded from this process here in Bosnia. And I would also add that women held their families and their communities together while they were victimized. And they're some of the bravest women I have ever met in the world.
Šta mislite kako Bosna i Hercegovina napreduje na evropskom putu i da li nam je Evropska unija zapravo jedina, možda i posljednja nada?
I've been really confounded by the EU approach to the Balkans. This dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo is the ongoing no, they won't. No, Vučić has repeatedly said he's not going to recognize Kosovo, and the leaders come out and say, oh, he is. Oh, yeah, we're working on it. And he's repeatedly said he's not going to. You have to change your game plan. You have to change up maybe the people that are engaging in this dialogue or facilitating it. And they haven't been that strong in Bosnia either. And I believe that Kosovo and Bosnia are the two chronic cases in terms of undermining its sovereignty in both countries. Those who are belligerent seem to really go after both of these countries. And this is where the international community has to stand strong and say, enough, enough, you cannot do this, and we're going to take action. And you could do, the nuclear weapons of the EU have rarely, if ever, been used. And it's time, it's well over time to do so.
Profesorice DOMI, bilo je veliko zadovoljstvo razgovarati s vama. Hvala vam mnogo što ste vaše vrijeme posvetili Hayat televiziji i želimo vam ugodan boravak u Bosni i Hercegovini.
Whatever I can do to help and support this country, I will continue to do it to the best of my ability.
Hvala vam na tome u moje ime i u ime Hayat televizije.
Puno hvala.
Poštovani gledalci, hvala vama na pažnji. Ostanite i dalje uz program Hayat televizije. Do gledanja.